Jason, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, even virtually, with you all. So thank you for your time. As Jason mentioned, I definitely want to do this without slides because a topic like, the human factor and human intelligence and cybersecurity, I feel like hearing from an actual human being and seeing them, even if it's just virtually, hopefully will have more of that effect rather than, PowerPoint to death. And as Jason mentioned, I'm not going to speak for the whole time. I'd like to leave half the time for you all to be able to ask questions and participate. As Jason and I have discussed, one of the things that we think has kind of been lost in a lot of the other virtual panels that are out there is not enough interaction. And sometimes it's just like, you could be watching a video recording, but you all have given your time and your time is really valuable. So what we want to do is give you the opportunity to be more involved. So please, as I'm talking, if anything sparks your interest or you want to ask a follow-on question or want more information or anything else, please, jot those down and be happy to answer them when we get to that point. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right in. The human side of cybersecurity and being a chief information security officer, to me is the most important factor. And that's why I was really excited and thrilled when Jason came up with this topic, because when I speak on other panels or I speak to other, people and organizations, the human intelligence side, it comes out for sure because I'm passionate about it, but it's never the focus topic. And so I'm excited to really dive, deep down into it and to have a chance to really, discuss a lot more of what's behind it, and the why, the Simon Sinek, why are we doing this? Why is this our strategy? And, hopefully I'll be able to back this up with some good statistics and metrics. I work for Governor Doug Ducey in Arizona, and he's a metrics-driven governor. He's a former CEO of Cold Stone Creamery. So he's the type of guy that if you don't have good statistics, then you better leave and come back when you've got them to back it up. So hopefully it's not just ideas, but should have some statistics to back this up as well. So first off, just by way of background, the reason why I'm so passionate about this and the reason why Jason and Sync chose this topic for me is I started my career working for the CIA, and I did that for 10 years. I served in a variety of different positions. But in some, CIA, despite being an all-source intelligence agency that, I know I'm very biased here when I say it's the world's most premier agency out there, but there wasn't really much the agency couldn't do. However, what the agency really specialized in within the intelligence community is human intelligence. And so, you watch all the Jason Bourne, movies and things like that, and you see, those other types of skill sets maybe that are out there, or a character from Taken or Jack Ryan or something like that. And it's always funny because I look at Jack Ryan and I always tell my family that, man, Jack Ryan can do like 25 different jobs. He can go into the field and perform so well as a paramilitary officer and come right back as a briefer and brief the President of the United States and go and meet with Congress. It's pretty amazing. There wasn't anything he couldn't do. In real life, you need a much more of a support network in place. And so that's a little more where I came in, and I learned an appreciation for human behavior and what a critical role that plays in our nation's security. And if you I'll fast forward to, a year and a half ago when I was offered the position to be our Chief Information Security Officer for the state of Arizona. And before I accepted the position, I had to kind of do some soul searching and try to figure out, what did I want to, give to the job? How did I want to, hopefully be successful for the state? And why did I want to do it? And I knew I was passionate about it. I knew cybersecurity was going to become, in our lifetimes, the #1 national security and public safety issue, because it's not just at the national level. It boils all the way down to our own public safety in our own backyard in the ways that we can be affected by it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that today. But it has this ability to be such a huge factor. But, besides the selfish reason of wanting to get involved in that, I had to figure out, what's my strategy? What I want to take out of it? And the human side of it really came up. It was, how do we leverage relationships from a human perspective to make cybersecurity more successful? How do I put the cybersecurity team for the state of Arizona, that's technical experts, how do I put them in a better position to do their job and achieve their mission? And once I started to kind of outline a strategy for what I thought the team could achieve, I quickly became convinced that I had to take the role, that it was right for me, and that we could really, do a lot of good if I combined sort of my strategic thinking with the technical expertise of the state of Arizona cybersecurity capabilities, which I'm so fortunate to work with the brightest, smartest cybersecurity experts that government has to offer. Being able to keep employees and retain talent in any aspect of cybersecurity right now is difficult, but in the government space, it's particularly difficult. And my number one most proud moment of the last year and a half is I haven't lost one employee. I've actually gained 2 FTEs through support from the governor to build our cybersecurity efforts up a little bit. And so I'm thrilled about that. That's actually, besides not, knock on wood, having a major cyber incident, retaining the workforce, I think, is the ultimate compliment for what we're trying to achieve. And so from a human aspect, having worked for the governor, I just took a look at it and said, okay, if I look at all the major data breaches in the world, I'm starting to see one really common trend, and that is a human mistake from your weakest link, most likely an employee, made a mistake and then became the victim, or the organization or the government entity or the private sector company, you name it, be the victim of, their worst day. Very expensive, catastrophic on many levels. But how did they fall into that? It was, a lack of awareness. It was a lack of employees taking care of the little things, protecting their passwords, protecting their accounts, not clicking on phishing emails, knowing what a phishing email is in the first place, not going to websites they shouldn't be, not allowing themselves to be socially engineered by putting too much information about themselves there that somebody can use that information to get into their accounts. There's so many different ways that people become victims, but we had to make sure that we're raising the bar of the weakest link. And, I don't mean this offense to any of the 36,000 state of Arizona employees that I have the pleasure of serving, but I really felt like human beings in the 36,000 employees were our weakest link. And so the first thing we did from a strategy perspective is, with the support of Governor Ducey, we mandated annual statewide cybersecurity awareness training for every single state of Arizona employee. So a year and a half ago, we said every single employee in the state will take cybersecurity awareness training, 1-hour training with a test once a year. And that was great. That was a big step because it puts those individuals more aware, in a better position to be our, we say we wanted them to be part of our cybersecurity team. And I use this line, and I know, people on the call might laugh a little bit, but I really mean it. I told my boss that I wanted to grow our cybersecurity team from 16 cybersecurity experts at the Arizona Department of Administration to 36,000. And I didn't need any additional funding to do it. I already had a contract and licenses to do more phishing training and more statewide cybersecurity awareness training. And people kind of laughed, and I said, nope, we're going to do it. And so we got the training done. We got everybody trained. And immediately, from a metrics perspective, what we saw is we saw on an average month before statewide cybersecurity awareness training, we would get about 25 emails from our state employees to our security operations center flagging, malicious emails, phishing links, things that didn't seem right, concerns they had. We were only getting 25 a month. Now we average about 250 a month. And that's just remarkable. And that puts our team in a better position because no tool in the world can, protect your organization 100% against phishing emails. And the main reason for that is it comes down to compromised accounts. You know, we have all the best filters and technology in the world out there that can block a lot of phishing emails. But the moment that good hackers gain access to credible accounts, other government accounts, which we see a lot, they then use that account to email us back with, you know, some sort of a malicious link or social engineering, something to kind of catch us and you know, catch the fish, if you will. And we needed our employees to know you're not just looking for who it's from, you're looking on why are they sending it to me? Why would I ever click on this? So we got them to start questioning things more, and that was huge for us. You know, those 250 emails, you know, a month really put us in a better position to block those emails from taking them out of other people's inboxes. You know, if one person receives a phishing email, click on it, that's fine. That one person didn't click on it, but what we need them to do is forward it to us to make sure that their, you know, colleague down the hall doesn't also have the opportunity to click on it. We want to get it out of there as soon as possible. So the human side of growing our cybersecurity team was huge for us, and having the support of the governor was, you know, mandatory. I mean, it was required. We had to have, you know, the power of the executive branch to make the cybersecurity awareness training mandatory. But at the end of the day, in your organizations, and what I found out, and I knew this after we mandated the annual training, was we can't just do it once a year. If we do it once a year, people forget about it. They're not going to pay attention. We need to find a way to engage with them on this human level, develop relationships with them so that they actually truly feel part of our cybersecurity team. And so my boss asked me, well, how the heck are you going to do that? And I said, just like, you know, anybody else would do, whether you were in the CIA as a case officer trying to establish an asset, trust can't be built overnight. It gets built through time. And so what we need to do is we need to have a constant stream of information, but they're not going to watch a 1-hour training video that I send to them in the middle of the year. So we tried to do is get creative. So we partnered with a cybersecurity awareness company that makes short, engaging, kind of funny, a little bit edgy, 2-3 minute videos on important cybersecurity tips. And we started sharing those with the workforce. Since our employees started teleworking, we find those videos to be a lot more valuable because we know there are more attacks coming in. We're seeing at least double the amount of phishing attacks, for example, coming into the state since we switched to a teleworking environment, because cyber criminals are preying on the fear tactic and also the distraction of what it's like to work from home. And so these short, engaging videos were a way we would reach out to them. I also realized that we can't be the bad guy. So anybody on the call that, you know, is in a similar position, which is probably most of you, you can't build that trust by only reaching out to your employees to say, bad, you clicked on a phishing email, watch this 10-minute video, don't do that again. You need to develop the relationship to reward some good behavior as well. It's that positive reinforcement. So we got creative, and we decided that we would start rewarding state employees that flagged real phishing emails and forwarded them to our state security operations center with Swedish fish and goldfish. So, you know, bring them some Swedish fish candy, little goldfish crackers. It sounds silly, but you would be amazed at how excited somebody gets in the middle of their workday before COVID and before everybody went to teleworking. If we brought them, hey, thanks a lot, you know, for flagging that, here's some goldfish on us. It was amazing. It was the littlest thing, and it would make somebody's day. Then we got the idea that we should send them the chocolate covered coins that are covered in the little gold wrappers. So, you know, your little pirates, you know, gold that my kids like so much. And I thought, you know, we're going to send these to state employees, and we're going to say, thank you for saving the state of Arizona Bitcoin. And it was just our own little catchy, you know, clever way to, you know, make them feel part of the cyber team, but with positive reinforcement, not just telling them, no, we need you to do better or anything like that. Now, I will tell you that does not work out well in Arizona 6 months out of the year. You cannot ship chocolate to people. Very bad idea. It doesn't go over well. I do not recommend it. However, now that we're into the cooler, more beautiful months in Arizona weather, we can definitely ship, you know, some of these chocolate, you know, covered gold coins out to people and say, hey, thanks for saving the state of Arizona Bitcoin. Just hopefully make them feel part of our team is something we need to do and develop those relationships. Because like I said, you know, it's the human mistakes that would get us into trouble, but it's their human success stories that are going to keep us out of trouble. And they need to know that, and they need to feel part of that as well. So big topic for everybody, I'm sure, on the call that we talk about a lot within the industry is how has teleworking changed this environment that we're operating in right now. From my perspective, it makes us double down on our efforts of more awareness, more training, more engagement. And in order to do so, you can't be boring. And I know cybersecurity can be boring, especially to non-technical people. So we've had to continue to get creative. You know, there's only so many goldfish crackers you can promise to people to keep them paying attention. So other things that I've done, I created a meme contest. I think there's great power in memes. I personally like them. It's one quick photo. You don't need to read bullet points. You don't need to read through, you know, a one-pager on how to protect yourself from cybersecurity mistakes. Just a meme from a, you know, popular movie or anything else that is relevant to a cybersecurity mission goes a long way. I use them regularly in my Tuesday, Thursday update calls with all the IT leaders from around the state of Arizona. So that includes all your biggest statewide agencies, you know, your departments of transportation, corrections, public safety, you know, healthcare, everything else that we're responsible for in the state. I know that I have the statutory responsibility to be their chief information security officer and help them protect against these growing number of cyber attacks. But again, how do I engage with them and their employees to continue to pay attention to me twice a week on Tuesday, Thursday mornings? So the meme contest started out as I was making them. Then I decided what I wanted to do was get them more involved. So I told them I would give them Uber Eats free lunch cards to anybody who made a better meme that we could use in the meeting. So if you make a meme in the state of Arizona executive branch and I use it in a meeting, I owe you lunch. That's as simple as it is. It has really helped. I've gotten great input and feedback. People pay attention more in the presentations. A lot of people laugh at me. I'm not going to lie. A lot of people make fun of me. They poke fun at me at, you know, on Twitter or LinkedIn and things like that. But it's just part of the game. And I told, you know, my team, I said, hey, you know what? If they're making fun of me, they're talking about me. And if they're talking about me, they're talking about cybersecurity. And that's a huge win for us. And those are the types of things we want to do. So we're in the holiday season. I have been memeing, you know, Elf, Home Alone, Love Actually. I got made fun of a lot for memeing Love Actually. And anybody who's familiar with the cue card movie scene when you know, the guy shows up at the door and he's got his cue cards and he says, to me, you're perfect. Well, it's really easy to white that out. And so we did that one. And then I put on the next one, you know, you're perfect. You know, he's saying to one of the female leads, and it's just said, when you don't click on phishing emails. And it was just a way for us to continue to remind our state employees that, hey, we think you're perfect, but hey, when you don't click on those phishing emails, again, it's just a way to make them think about cybersecurity, to feel part of our team, to hopefully make them laugh. You know, you got to get creative. It's, you know, I think I would rather go down swinging than go down looking, to use a baseball analogy. If I'm going to strike out and a hacker is going to beat us, I at least want to go down taking a shot. I don't want to go down just looking and letting somebody take advantage of some of our vulnerabilities. That's why we stress a lot of this. Take care of your passwords, use strong passwords. They matter. We send out a lot of videos on it. We try to be as engaging as possible because it's a human game. They are human mistakes. We've basically looked at a lot of studies, and it's between 98 and 99% of all major data breaches are caused by a human error at some level, not protecting the account or clicking on the malicious link. But to go back to how that relates now in a telework environment and trying to engage with these state IT leaders on these calls and trying to get creative, again, I have to have the statistics and metrics to back it up, or they're not going to, you know, pay attention. So right now, the latest stats we have from our web content filtering vendor is we have seen a 5 times, I mean, it's just unbelievable, 5 times the amount of risky behavior from our state employees that are teleworking. And I think it has to do with the human side of this. You know, we work from home, we got our pajamas on, we're on the couch, Amazon's knocking on the door, dogs barking, maybe some daytime, golf, on a Thursday or Friday. You've got all these distractions. Sometimes, even if you got your work laptop out, you don't feel like you're at work, and your human behavior changes. And that's why 5 times the amount of risky behavior is what we're seeing. And we're blocking it. Web content filtering is a great tool where we can automatically block and say, no, you're not allowed to access that website from your work device. And that's fairly simple, but the problem is bigger than that. The problem is if you're more likely by 5 times to be trying to visit a risky website, you're probably a heck of a lot more likely to click on the phishing email as well. And that's why, to tie this all back together, that's why you got to have the memes, the videos, the training, the buy-in from your executives, your CEO or your governor or your mayor or anybody else, because you have to be constantly building that trust within the environment that they feel part of it. And that's just huge for us. I think a lot of our success has been, thanks to that type of behavior being changed. The last thing I'm going to talk about before we turn it over to questions is related to the human intelligence side and public safety. I said I was going to come back to this. We are in the process of building a relationship with our law enforcement partners here in Arizona. And we did a press release earlier this year due to COVID and teleworking. We were going to do a big open house. We couldn't do that. But we have a new partnership with the Arizona Counterterrorism and Information Center. We call it the ACTIC. It's our state fusion center. Every state has one. After 9/11, Congress provided funding to make sure that all states had a fusion center. The fusion center, what that is, for those of you that don't know, it's a fusion between federal, state, and local law enforcement partners to share information under one roof, to mitigate threats and concerns, and to protect human life, essentially is what it is. So you get your FBI, DHS, TSA, DPS from the state level. So you got those federal partners, you get your state level, you get your Maricopa County Sheriff's Office from a county level, you get Phoenix Police Department from a local level, and so on and so forth. Now, they started off mainly working on counterterrorism state cases, but it's called the Counterterrorism and Information Center. And I said what we needed to do is we needed to come into the modern times of public safety and national security and know that information is a key part of everything we do, especially within cybersecurity. So we've worked really hard. We're in the process of rolling out training to law enforcement officers around the state to prepare them to respond to cybersecurity cases. Because right now, if you're the victim of any cyber-related crime online, the chance that law enforcement in any state is going to take your case and prosecute it and investigate it is almost slim and none. The federal partners are great, but they don't have the bandwidth, and most of your cases are not going to meet their thresholds unless it's a major, compromise, a major incident. What we want to do is we want to make cybersecurity and to protect our citizens and the victims and to bring justice to those criminals that are responsible to this. We want to start training law enforcement on how to, handle a cybersecurity case, what it is, how to protect themselves even. And we're working with the Maricopa County Attorney's Office to build cases. And what we want to do is we want to prosecute criminals for this behavior, or whether it's in Arizona or around the country. We get it. We're not going to be able to go after a Russian or Chinese, hacker, especially if it's nation state. But we can still share that information with our great federal partners, and we do that regularly. We're sharing more information and indicators of compromise with them, and they're seeing value with it at their federal level. We've gotten a lot of good feedback from their headquarters, which is great. But again, it's the human side. The reason why this all ties in is if we can start prosecuting some of the cyber criminals, we make them know that there are consequences for their actions and that they need to knock it off, or else, we're going to come after them with the full support of law enforcement. It's a great deterrent. It goes a long way to helping our citizens feel more protected. At this point, if we don't start doing something about the rising number of cyber attacks, then we're going to be in for a really rude awakening here in our future. Criminals have to know that there's consequences for doing this to our businesses or our government. And it starts by training law enforcement, getting prosecutors on board, your attorney general's office or federal partners or your county attorney's office. in really taking these bad guys off the battlefield, so to speak. And so another thing we do as part of that information sharing organization is we've created a portal of indicators of compromise that we share between all of our government agencies, and we're just now starting to add private sector companies. But we want to share more IOCs, those are our indicators of compromise, so that the entire state can benefit. So if a small town sees a certain indicator of compromise, they share that with us, we automate it, we immediately know at the state level, other participants know at the county level and the city level, I'm going to block that IP address, I'm going to block that malicious code, I'm going to block that email, whatever it is, they know quicker and we can all better protect ourselves. So in summary, that's how, you know, we looked at it as a human game and human error. We thought, you know, a strategy of better relationships and building trust would be key, that we would get more human interaction and information sharing. And we've taken it to a level now that what we really want to see is we want to see, you know, bad guys get prosecuted, as my boss says, go after some bad guys. And I think that could make a whole world of difference. So hopefully it's not just a lot of, you know, ambitious talk, but we are really making, you know, big strides to put our money where our mouth is on this. And those are just a few of the ways we're trying to get creative from a human perspective and try to put the state in a better position to protect all of our data. So happy to answer any questions that you all have now. There we go. I didn't talk for the whole time.
Absolutely perfect, Simon. Thank you so much, Tim. Really appreciate that. And we do have some questions coming in. First question I kind of have, obviously, before, because there's a bit of a theme coming in with how we can marry human intelligence with artificial intelligence on the Q&A piece here. So we'll tackle that in a sec. But before that, obviously, a lot of your focus has been around building a very sophisticated team, right? And a team that obviously has the nous to identify, you know, when something might be a little bit awry. How do you then potentially combat complacency? Because one element that a machine versus a human has, right? Machine, yes, okay, it may break at some point, but humans have the ability to be very complacent when they get very overconfident. So have you thought about that? Is that anything you've had to come up against so far, or do you have kind of any plans or strategy to combat that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's why layered security approaches are so important. We can't just solve this problem only with, you know, human beings, you know, in a 24/7 SOC. Look, in government, we can't even afford that. We hire out for support there. We have great vendors and partners that help us with that, but it becomes extremely expensive. So you need good layered security where you're not just relying on one vendor to do everything, but you're doing best of breed across, you know, we have 15 different cybersecurity tools that we map to, and that makes us feel more comfortable. Sure, a lot of talk out there right now with more automation is good. I talked about how we automate our IOCs to help prevent those attacks from succeeding. But AI, a lot of times, some of us are, you know, I heard this from somebody else, so I'm going to steal it. AI is just kind of assisted intelligence. You know, artificial intelligence makes it seem like, well, how the heck do you even use that? It's assisted intelligence. Somebody somewhere still has to really, you know, do something good with it and make good decisions from a practical level. Sure, you can block a lot, but you know, from a human perspective, we need eyes on glass. We need people, you know, looking at, you know, the crux of what's behind it in a little more context as well. So yeah, layered security, good. Not just, I can't pay for a staff to be doing this 24/7. So I've got to have good technology and automation. And yes, that AI is important. But we need that right combination of human and machine kind of working in concert with one another. And the only way you do it is you better have some people that really understand the tools. We've noticed that unless you train all the state agencies on how to use the tools, you'll do more harm than good. So how you roll out a tool, when you switch to a new vendor, why you're doing it is really important.
Great, thank you very much. Another one along the theme of kind of use of AI here is more around kind of like, so Nathan was asking, how does feedback from the workforce get fed into your security platforms? Is that manual, or do you use AI learning to prevent future attacks?
We do a little bit. We also have a lot of the human side of, I'm not sure if this is exactly what they're asking, but I'm going to kind of try to answer it and tie it into the human theme here. So we have monthly meetings with all the information security officers around the state of Arizona's executive branches, so that the overall statewide team is more than just the 6 team that work for me at ADOA. And as the CISO and state statute, I'm responsible for a lot more in helping those state agencies, but those state agencies also have their own information security teams. We bring them together once a month to share a lot of what we're seeing, how to combat against it, the tools that are out there, how to provide an enterprise approach so that we don't have everybody operating in a bunch of different silos. We need this for better purchasing power to be on the same page, and we also want to be all using, the right tools. How we've engaged with them in a teleworking environment when we can't have them come meet in person, we've had to get really creative. My team does what we call not another coffee or not another lunch. And what we try to do is we try to break out the meeting with, we bring in private sector vendors to give threat briefings. We do trivia for some of it. We try to do rewards. We try to make it fun and interaction driven so that the agencies have the human side, but from an enterprise perspective, we need to put tools in front of them that will do a lot of the work for themselves.
Got you. Question coming in here, I suppose more of an opinion. I'm not sure if there's anything you've had to kind of like think about this too much yourself. I'm not sure, but at what point is a security breach cause to let an employee go?
Ooh, wow, that's a really good question. It's really tough to answer because, I talked about taking this job and what I wanted to accomplish. And there was a side of me that I almost didn't want to take the job because it was so risky. I actually thought to myself, if a security incident happens while I'm the CISO, I'm going to lose my job. I'm never going to be able to get another job. Why in the world would I want to be the person in charge? Because I'm going to be the first one let go. Speaking of that, talk to a lot of people within the industry, and we're seeing that CISOs and information security officers, there's actually, believe it or not, kind of more value for the ones out there that have experienced some sort of emergency or incident and that have been able to respond well to it. So no, you don't want a whole resume full of cyber incidents. Probably anything more than one is going to be a major red flag. You're not going to be as attractive anymore. But I've seen my counterparts in other states and other cities around the country that have survived major cybersecurity incidents, and they're actually stronger now because they have that real world experience of how it happened, how we're going to mitigate from happening again, why this happened. Those types of real world experience are really valuable. Now, from the line level employee, it's not going to be a good day. I would say that, somebody, clicking on an email, I don't think it's really a fireable offense, but there has to be some repercussions to, the harm you've done to your organization. We haven't quite figured out what that might be. We're currently in the process to kind of float this out there to everybody on the call. We're still trying to figure out what the repercussions need to be for the people that are clicking on the phishing training emails, because we need to get tougher with them. It needs to be more the people that click 3, 4, 5. Okay, you've clicked on 5 of these now throughout the last year. They're, termination, yeah, that might be a little too far, but we've talked a lot about suspending accounts, almost putting you on probation at an agency, but the agency directors are saying, well, they can't get any work done now if you suspend their accounts. And we said, well, that might actually be a good thing for you, considering the threat they are. But that's a great question. Again, it's just a really tough one. I'd say if you have a history of making poor decisions, there needs to be appropriate consequences. But if it's just a one-off, if you just made one mistake one day, I'm not sure that's necessarily a fireable offense.
That's very well put. Thank you very much. A few comments just coming in there. Repercussions, yes, they influence behavior. Yes, they do. Yeah. Another question that came in on the chat feature here from Brandon is, what is your remediation plan with ransomware? Do you pay to get your data? What are your thoughts on those companies who pay for their data, but Department of Treasury comes after you?
Great question. Absolutely not. Don't pay it. You will, speaking of the human side of this, the more people that pay ransomware are just making it worse for all of us. I'm really passionate about this. I understand that it's a difficult position. None of us want to be in the position of having all of our data that affects our livelihoods, our business, our paychecks, and everything else, especially now when, these criminals are coming after healthcare industry during a pandemic and things like that. A hospital organization that, we've seen ransomware. I know it's difficult, but you can't pay it because one, if you pay it, you're making it worse for everybody. I said that, okay, be a good team player. That doesn't motivate people all the time. They're a little more motivated at the time of how do I get my system back up and running? There is absolutely no guarantee that once you pay it, that they haven't already figured out a way to get back in. So with ransomware, you're gonna really need a good forensics team to make sure before you do anything that how they got in, mitigate it, patch it, make sure it can't happen again. Because the criminals will find a way once you've paid to come right back in and exploit you again. And if they didn't leave something behind to get back in, they're going to try to come after you again because they know it pays their bills for them. You're going to become more of a target if you pay it. Highly recommend that you don't pay it. Honestly, I saw a trend, a really good article on this from a cybersecurity insurance perspective. The insurance companies are paying more ransoms, and I think I apologize if this offends anyone, but I think it's kind of disingenuous because the more ransoms they pay, the more they can charge up their premiums and go out there and get more people to buy in, because it seems like, oh my God, you need us now more than ever. Look how much we had to pay to get this company back up. And I realize they don't really talk about what it was. But from a cybersecurity insurance perspective, the other frustrating thing is once they get involved, all the good information is gone. So if we have a small municipality get hit with ransomware and we're looking to get their IOCs to better protect the state or to help them, the cyber insurance companies will tell them, don't talk to anybody, don't give anybody anything, we're handling it now, that's it. And it's really tough because I truly think an attack on any of you on the line is an attack on all of us, and I want to be there to help. And I've said this before, and believe me when I tell you, high-level executives at Arizona companies have reached out to me to take advantage or pick my brain, whether they're in an emergency or not, just because I think they wanted to see if I really meant it, that I would give them my time and really truly teamwork of, attack on one is an attack on all. But, there's a lot of basic things you can do to prepare yourself for ransomware. So if your worst day comes, if you've backed up appropriately offline, you should be okay. That's probably the most important, thing. CISA has, the three major rules are back up offline, make sure that you continue to access that, know you have access to it. Protect your accounts is sounds so basic, but it's really simple. The basic cybersecurity hygiene and having cybersecurity awareness, all those types of things go a long way. And the last one they always talk about is have an incident response plan. Make sure that it is practiced and executed. You don't want to find yourself in a ransomware situation and your team does not know what the incident response plan is, doesn't know how to exercise it, they don't know who to call. It gets really bad really fast when you don't even know, hey, who's that? Speaking of cyber insurance companies, who's that? Who are we supposed to call? Like, what company are we even using? And it has happened. I've heard horror stories where people find themselves waking up in the middle of the night to a cyber incident and they don't even know who to call. And it really, to steal a line from Ron Burgundy, it really escalates quickly at that point. So I think as cyber leaders, we're going to be judged on how we respond to an incident, not whether something happened. It's happening a lot.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Another kind of follow-up question there. This obviously has opened up a little bit of a can. How about the higher ups who choose to pay it even though you don't want to? In some instances, obviously, there's actual funding specifically for these instances.
Well, it's tough. I mean, everybody has a boss somewhere, even a CEO, is likely, answering to a board somewhere. I'll just give you my government perspective, and that is, I don't have a law in Arizona prohibiting me from paying it. There has been some conversations about it, and some other states have done that where they prohibit the use of public funding, of taxpayer funding to be used to pay ransoms. It's kind of like paying, negotiating with terrorists in a way. I mean, it's modern day terrorism or piracy. I mean, really. And I don't think we should be allowed to use taxpayer dollars to do that. I think if we allow ourselves that as a get out of jail free card, so to speak, it makes us worse at our jobs. I need to be motivated, and people like me around the country need to be motivated to really bust our tails, to have that incident response plan, to back up, to secure those air gaps, to exercise good cybersecurity awareness and basic cybersecurity hygiene. We can't have, state CISOs around the country thinking, well, if it happens, I've got this fund over here and I'm just going to pay them to get it back. I don't think that's the right attitude. I think we need to have the attitude going in as, we're going to do everything we can to prevent it. And God forbid it happens to us. And it very well could. Shoot, the number of attacks we're seeing right now. Believe me when I tell you, I'm thankful for the quiet days. And I tell my team all the time, I know it's not quiet by luck. I see the statistics. We have to be right 100% of the time. You know how hard that is? To be right 100% of the time. And with all the different types of attackers that are out there coming after all of us, they only have to be right once. So it's almost just not a matter of if it happens, it's a matter of when it happens. And to kind of tie that back into the question, I just don't like having the option to pay. I think it does more harm than good. But
do you think that public sector, in your case, governments where it is taxpayer funded, do you think that there's a high level of scrutiny towards private versus public sector organizations, like from the perception of the consumer themselves, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that you guys get a little bit more leeway in some instances than a private organization because I'm actively giving this company my money versus I got to give you my money?
Yeah, that's pretty well put. I think, unfortunately, and I've worked in government, my whole career, and I know I'm young, but I will tell you, there's a certain, stereotype out there of what a bureaucrat is and the expectations. A lot of times our citizens don't expect a lot from government, and it's sad. I think we need to raise the bar and we need to do better. So yeah, I think the standards are a little higher on the private sector companies, but they shouldn't necessarily be that way. I think we should have high standards for all the people that serve in these positions, including myself, just like as if we were with a private sector company. Now, I know it's difficult. I'll speak for my other 49 colleagues that I'm close with around the country, all the other CISOs. We know it's tough because our budget is a lot more controlled in a government environment than it is in a private sector environment. In a private sector environment, you're a lot more nimble. You can quickly, spend money, move things around, more cybersecurity tools. We have great support for cybersecurity in the state of Arizona, and I'm really lucky to have that. But from a strictly government perspective, every dollar I have is accounted for. It's in a budget line item. It's publicly available. It's negotiated between the governor and the state legislature. And that's all I get. And so, being able to be flexible is sometimes difficult. You got to be real strategic, know what you're doing going in. We're starting to get a little bit better at negotiating, but that's thanks to all these private sector companies. So if all these private sector companies are on the line, I gotta say the amount of tools in free market capitalism and competition that's out there right now is awesome. I mean, it truly is, because it helps us in government. We have more options now. We actually can improve our security and drive down costs right now because the business side of this, the private sector companies, they're delivering right now. It's really cool to see. Cybersecurity vendors are changing every single day. It almost makes it difficult to even sign a 3-year contract anymore, because sure, you get a better deal, but it's almost like, man, I wonder what's going to happen, next year. But my team always tells me, Tim, it's really hard to train on how to use these tools. It's a lot of work, a lot of man hours go into it. It takes us a year or so just to figure out what the heck we're doing. Let's make sure we factor that into our decisions, which is good advice.
Yeah. Well, the final question ties into something you just said about, the great relationship you have with your 49 esteemed CISOs from across the country. a comment tying into a question. So the first comment was, can you please tell Florida and Texas CISOs to stop paying ransomware? And then that ties nicely into the question that came in as well, which is, you spoke about sharing information within the states. How often do you collaborate with CISOs in other states? Are there some states that might not necessarily be up to par with their cyber resilience? I appreciate that's a tricky question for you to answer.
Well, that question is spot on, and it actually could not be a better question to end on, considering our topic is, human intelligence and cybersecurity. So let's just say intelligence and information can be used synonymously with one another. I get slapped on the hand or the wrist all the time from different colleagues saying, stop saying intelligence. It makes it look like you're spying on the citizens of Arizona. Is just say information. And I say, okay, you're right. I'm going to go back to saying, information. But I try to tell people that there's also great value in saying intelligence because it gives us more credibility. It actually helps our citizens understand that what we're doing and what we're working on is not just dumb luck information that's out there. And it is hard work, and we do have to analyze it, and we have to intelligently, analyze this in order to benefit everyone. And how we share that information is critical. So from a human side, there is no substitute for real world experience. And what I'm seeing and working on, and what my 49 other colleagues are in the other states. So to answer the question, the way I keep in touch with them is the National Association of CIOs. So it's NASCIO. And NASCIO actually includes chief information security officers as well. They started breaking it up, and we've got CIOs and CISOs. This happened a couple of years ago. It's great. NASCIO is a great organization. So that's probably the best way that I keep in touch with the other CISOs. I can also go through the National Governors Association, which helps. But for sake of answering the question, NASCIO helps bring us together for, at the very least, monthly virtual calls right now. We share best practices. We actually are on email chains with each other constantly through NASCIO, so we can update on the election. For example, is a lot of, hey, what are you seeing in your state? How do I block against it? What vendors are you using? Who did you find that could handle that? And then in cyber incidents, it's been really helpful because we can share very candid information back and forth amongst ourselves to just say things like, hey, I'm seeing this really weird problem and it is keeping me up at night and I don't know what to do about it. And you could float it out there to 49 different people, and there might be one person out there or 10 people out there that might have an answer that might help you. You can't be afraid to ask. These are difficult challenges. For everybody that's on the line, just know that if this was easy, somebody would have figured this out and would have mastered this before all 35 of us got on this call. And if it was so easy, somebody would have written a playbook by now that I could have just read and I'd be perfectly situated to protect the state of Arizona. And I wouldn't need all of this, human, interactions and sharing information, because it all would have been figured out. But it's not easy. It's really difficult. It changes every single day. Like I said, when I took the job, I knew that this was going to become the biggest national security issue. And I really believe it. I think, in closing, right now we've kind of shown as a world that technology is amazing and it can keep us going, and it can deliver us the goods and food and different things we need, and we can telework and all that is great. But a lot of our entire livelihoods now and the entire global economy is so dependent upon technology to be able to carry it out, and that's why security has to be such a huge part of this. And I think a lot of people are realizing that's why security needs to be involved from the very beginning, from the development side of software and security and everything else. Because if you can't secure it, then it's kind of useless, and it'll end up doing more harm than good. But I think the job security for everybody on this call, because you all are IT leaders, your job security is pretty good. I would say, like I noted earlier, it's not a matter of if something goes wrong, it's a matter of when something goes wrong. That's why I'm a lot more public than our previous CISO. I love our previous CISO. He's a good friend. He did an amazing job. I owe him so much for allowing me to inherit such a good team. But I talk a lot publicly about the threats we face because, you know, when it happens, I don't want anybody to ever come out and say, well, you weren't doing anything, or I never heard from you, or I never heard of what you were doing. And my predecessor said, the more you talk, the more of a target you will become, because somebody will want to challenge you. And I looked at the statistics of people coming after us, and I said, I don't think it can really go up that much. I think I'm just going to start to get out there. And I laugh because if I don't laugh, I'm going to cry about it for sure. But yeah, the attacks always go up. But that's why I talk about it like not from an arrogant perspective. We don't have all the answers. It's so complicated. I talk about it. If anything, I give, you know, the criminals, the nation states, the hacktivists, I give them credit. I say, man, like, whew, they are getting good. It's unbelievable what they're capable of. It's very scary. But in no way am I trying to challenge anybody. I don't want that. I don't need that. I know, you know, they'll win because they only have to be right once. You know, in a sporting event, if you won a basketball game 100-1, nobody would say, man, you lost because you gave up a point. But in the cybersecurity world, if I give up 1 point, I lose. And so it's really difficult. You've got to obviously be humble, but you can't just, you know, sit in the closet and wait for people to come after you. You've got to be forward leaning. And I think it helps from a transparency perspective. You know, our citizens want to see and hear about how they can better protect themselves. So sorry, I went on a long time there.
Not a problem at all. I think it's fantastic. We've gone way over time, but that's the beauty of these candid conversations, right? When we can kind of dive a little bit deeper into the box, so to speak. We were able to really uncover a lot of the gems inside. So thank you so much for your time, Tim. Really appreciate it. Fantastic session, complete with Love Actually and Anchorman analogies and all that stuff as well. So thank you very, very, very much.